When we talk about traditional music, are we talking about some long lost art form, some part of our musical history that's just been memorialized? Our guest today doesn't think so, and we're going to discuss that and much more. Stick around. Welcome to Charlie's Open Mic. My name is Charlie Mosbrook, and this week's show we're going to talk to Andy Cohen. He's a blues musician out of Memphis, Tennessee. We're going to talk about traditional music and the many ways that he's worked to keep that alive. Before we start talking, though, let's listen.
A friend of mine down the street, he was a good musician, and he just passed away. This was his favorite number. His name was David Howe. Got a church bell ringing, secretary singing, preachers preaching, elder sister shouting, mama's in the gallery, mama's trying to learn the song. Dirty low down sneaking deacon stole my gal and gone. My mama died and left me reckless, and my papa died and left me wild. Died and left me reckless, Papa died and left me wild. Ain't good looking, but I'm some sweet woman's angel child. Got a woman in Seattle, I got a gal in Maine. Got a gal up the country, scared to call her name. Can't stand still. I ain't good looking, but I sure am hard to kill. Now you getting kinda drunk, feeling kinda frisky, pack it down with ice. Fill it up with whiskey, ride 'em over. Give me Coca-Cola, lemon soda, soft ice cream. Give me soap and water, mama, just to keep it clean. Now I went to the river, trying to get across. Jumped on a gator, thought it was a horse, ride 'em over. Give me Coca-Cola, lemon soda. Give me soap and water, mama, just to. I ain't gonna dig no ditches, I can't walk no commissary counter. And I promised the good Lord, wasn't gonna dig no coal. I promised the good Lord I wasn't gonna dig no coal. Wanna get to heaven when you're D.I.E. Put on your collar and your T.I.E. Get the rabbit out the L.O.G. But makes it like a D.O.G. Ride 'em over. Give me Coca-Cola, lemon soda, soft ice cream. Give me soap and water, mama, just to keep it clean. Got a church bells ringing, secretary singing, preachers preaching. Mama's in the gallery, trying to learn the song. Dirty low down sneaking deacon stole my gal and gone.
Welcome to the show, Andy Cohen.
Hey,
Hey, good to see you, man.
good to see you.
You staying in Memphis for a while?
I've been in Memphis for the last 7 months. I had just about 15 grand worth of gigs lined up. It was going to take me across the country 4 times. Everything just went poof, just like for everybody else. And the entire folk world slammed up against the lockdown and didn't miss a beat. I'm very proud of all of us.
Hmm.
We didn't miss a beat. The lockdown was on Tuesday, and this live streaming began on Wednesday.
It's quite amazing. I feel like we felt our calling. We knew,
Yeah, oh yeah,
people are
yeah,
stuck in their homes. They can't do anything. They've
yeah,
got this sense of
yeah,
uncertainty for the future. What do folk singers do?
yeah. We slept around.
So let's back up. Let's talk a little bit about your history and where you come from. You're from Boston originally,
I'm from a little town called Sharon
in Massachusetts.
in Massachusetts, halfway between Boston and Providence. That's where I grew up. My dad moved us out to a subdivision that he perceived as a rural area. It was the first time in his life he had a garden where he could grow tomatoes and pickles. He was a labor lawyer, kind of a history buff, and one of the things that he knew was that for the last 1,000 years in Europe, Jews hadn't been allowed to own land. So when he bought his land, he put a damn garden in it, and put his stake down.
Did
But
you start playing music as a kid?
I did. I started thinking on the piano like this when I was about 3.
Okay.
Uh, I played music when I was about 6. Somebody gave me a plastic tin whistle, and I figured that out in 5 minutes. You just take one finger off and up it goes.
Hmm.
So put it back and it comes down again. It was intuitive. And I was 10 years old. I was getting into Dixieland jazz. I grew up with the Firehouse 5+2 and Pete Daly and Phil Napoleon and his Memphis 5 and Doc Evans and the Preservation Hall people because my dad was a jazz buff. I got on the honor roll one time in high school. If you got on the honor roll, you could leave study hall and go to the library and listen to records, which I did. And one day, Miss Clark had a new record in. It was Sonny Terry, Brownie McGee, and Big Bill Brunzi being interviewed on WFMT in 1956 or 7 by Studs Terkel.
Okay.
I memorized that record. I can still play every song on it. That was my initial connection between country blues and what we call the music I grew up with, the Dixieland music.
You went to school in Kent, Ohio, just down the road from us here.
Well, I was a long time getting there.
Uh, Okay.
Out of high school, I went to University of Illinois, ostensibly for the gym team, but the civil rights movement captured me, and I dropped off the gym team. I got married, and we lived in Detroit, and then we got divorced. I lived in Ann Arbor, and then Iris and I moved to Saratoga after she graduated from University of Michigan. And we were involved in a musicians co-op called Wildflowers that Utah Phillips had organized. We held on to each other for dear life for a year and a half until we got broken up by a bounced check. Long story short, I couldn't be more proud of all the people that I came up with. All of them, every single one that is still living, is still kicking butt. Whatever it was we were doing, we still doing it. A lot of us were more explicitly into traditional music as opposed to songwriting. I promote traditional music because there's plenty of, songwriting is 90%. I'm kind of a hardliner. When we glommed on to that old music, we glommed on hard. You've been to the Kent State Folk Festival, so you know how it's organized. When I was running it, I had a formula. The Kent State Folk Festival was there. We figured, all of the people agreed, we figured was to assert the different kinds of ethnic music that lived in Ohio and elsewhere. But we collected fiddle tunes. We had a fiddle tune collection. Those cassettes are still at the Study Center for the Study of World Music.
I wonder how what kind of shape they're in and how the
Oh,
years have treated
well,
them.
if we could find them, we'd probably have we'd have a lot of good fiddle tunes by a lot of fiddlers who, many of them have passed away.
You, by trade, are also an anthropologist,
Yeah, I did archaeology
archaeology.
as a tech. I'm the guy that digs the hole. I'm the
Okay.
guy that washes the potsherds off in the lab. I did that for about 35 years along with playing music. I like old things just because they're old. I didn't know anything about old time music really until I saw Pete Seeger playing the banjo. But in 1964, there was a festival at Brandeis. I was 18 years old, 17 years old, not quite 18. My brother brought me. I saw the Jim Kweskin Jug Band, then the New Lost City Ramblers, and they brought out Roscoe Holcomb, who'd just come up from Daisy, Kentucky. Then there was a break, and then there was the Bessie Jones and the Georgia Sea Island Singers that knocked everybody for a loop. And then Reverend Gary Davis. And then the Georgia Sea Island Singers came back, and they and Reverend Gary Davis had church, and all of those Jewish kids in Brandeis got to see how church was done and jumped out of their skulls. All these kids with yarmulkes on started jumping up and down in the back seats there, and I was right up front because I knew that I wanted to learn. I wanted to see how Reverend Davis was playing, and I got a good view of it that night. For those who don't know, Reverend Davis was the best guitar player on the planet. He's been dead since 1972, and he's still the best guitar player on the planet. He had to literally hear and reinvent music theory from listening to the four-part harmony at the revivals that his grandmother took him to. There is a whole school of guitar players who play, who study his music, starting with Stephen Grossman and people like Dave Van Ronk, Ernie Hawkins. I could go on and on. But you taught half the rock and rollers how to play. That school of music, almost everybody that learns how to play Reverend Gary Davis stuff becomes a teacher of it because it's complete music. You got to study it and one way or another understand musical structure, Western musical structure of common music. It's not harmonically complicated, it has a melody. Reverend Davis's music was complete, and he had acolytes all over the country. So wherever I went, I would run into people who played Reverend Gary Davis's music. I got to host him one time for a couple of weeks when he played the Quiet Night in Chicago. I learned about more than just playing the guitar from him. When I first went to college and then moved up to Chicago, I met a man named Jim Brewer. He was another one of these blind guys, and he had a Wednesday gig every Wednesday at a place called the No Exit.
I remember the New Exit.
You probably played there at one time.
I was a kid at the No Exit. I was 20 years old, I think, and
Wow.
they asked me to represent them at some open mic contest, citywide open mic contest. So I went and I came in second place, and I went back and I said, "Hey, I came in second place. Can I have a gig?" And they said, "Not until you're 30." I still never got the gig.
Jim came up kind of toward the end to Chicago at the end of the Great Migration, about 1940, following his family. He was 20 years old then. He was born in 1920. His family went up a few months before he did. He traveled up and began playing on Maxwell Street. In 1940, he played there until 1988 when he died, every Sunday that he was in town. people from the University of Chicago would come down to Maxwell Street, see him playing, and they'd drag him over to whatever the coffee house was at that year. He got a permanent regular gig every Wednesday at the No Exit, courtesy of Joe Moore. My dad was a labor lawyer, and my ethos was get the old guys work. That's what I did for many years. I took a fleet of blind guys around. I was their common lead boy. Being involved with the Kent State Folk Festival allowed me full play with bringing people who grew up in the tradition. We recognized that there's a difference between somebody who literally grew up with the music and somebody who comes to it a little bit later in life, whether it's early or late adolescence or sometime after that. No matter how well you can play the music or even sing the songs, there's a million things that you don't know about the community where this music comes from. I just finished reading a book by Steve Wisniewski, who's a dyspeptic sort of commentator on the whole hillbilly music scene. He wrote a book at one point called How the Hippies Ruined, R-U-I-N-T, ruined hillbilly music. Well, his conclusion was that they really didn't. They just got into it along with everybody else that was down there. They moved down there for the music, and they adopted it and eventually became community members themselves. And it's all kind of a glorious mayhem that still goes on. Captures what I value most, the living tradition. Music is limited to being on a library shelf or in the stack someplace. It's not doing anybody any good. Nobody's dancing to it, nobody's singing to it, nobody is thrilling to it, nobody is learning it. So whatever kinds of songs you sing them into the air. You know, if the music isn't in the air, then it's not alive. Music on recording is valuable for what it is, but it's kind of like a disassembled frog in a petri dish. You know, it's good for learning, but it's not good for living. For living, you have to, you know, put it back together after you analyze it and use it in its proper context. That's what I do, and that's what I promote, and that's what I teach. I want people to be grounded in the old music. I've gotten away with it for 60 years.
If you appreciate this content, please consider subscribing to the channel. Please ring the bell for notifications of upcoming episodes. As always, please click like down below. Please comment and let us know what you're up to. And you can always visit us at charliesopenmic.com, where you can find our Patreon link to help support the show. All got something to lose. Sometimes it feels like I'm losing too much. Sometimes it feels like I'm losing my mind and I'm losing touch. You gain more than you can ever comprehend. A whole lot of love, support from your friends. You gained a lot of strength for everything you lost. So be glad for what you got instead of what it costs, 'cause we've all got something to lose. We've all got something to give. Sometimes it feels like I don't give enough. Sometimes it feels like I barely will have enough of my own. You give more than you can ever understand. It might be a smile or a helping hand, and sometimes just listening to what I have to say. You give just by telling me that everything's okay. We've all got something to give. we've all got something to do. Sometimes it feels like I don't do enough. Sometimes it seems kind of pointless, and I'm just doing stuff. You do a lot and it is relative, my friend. You can't compare what we do in the end. You do a lot of things that I can't do. So take the time to do these things and do them like you do. We've all got something to do. Thanks for watching Charlie's Open Mic this week, and thank you to Andy Cohen for sitting down and talking to me and sharing a little music. As always, please hit that subscription link down below. Please ring the bell for notifications of upcoming episodes. Always click like and comment down below. Let us know what you're up to. Share a little music, art, poetry, whatever you want to say down below. I just want to hear from you. And you can always visit us at charliesopenmic.com, where you can find our Patreon link and help support the show. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.